with Russia on destroying Syria's chemical weapons. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So far, the Israeli leader is cautiously optimistic that the deal will avoid a U.S. military strike against Syria. Netanyahu says he hopes the deal leads to the, quote, complete destruction of the entire chemical weapons arsenal which the Syrian regime used against its citizens. On Saturday, Kerry and his Russian counterpart announced a deal had been reached that will eventually see Syria hand over and destroy its stockpile of chemical weapons. For more on this, we're joined by Emanuele Ottolenghi in Washington. He is a senior fellow with the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Thank you, Emanuele, for joining us today.
Thank you. Good morning.
Israel's prime minister is being cautiously optimistic about the deal reached by Kerry and Russia's foreign minister, saying it should be judged on whether Syria's arsenal can be destroyed in its entirety. So do you think this is even possible?
Well, first of all, we have to see whether the Syrian regime is going to embrace the deal and agree to its implementation. Secondly, the deal presents some very tough questions, even if the Syrian regime endorses it, because it requires being implemented in the context of an ongoing conflict. So there are questions open about who is going to protect the inspectors, who is going to the number of forces involved in carrying out the implementation, who is going to contribute the manpower to do so. So it's not a simple matter. It stretches out over the course of months, and it also leaves open the question as to whether the Syrian regime is actually going to be able to remove part of the stockpile and shield it from the inspections themselves. There are unconfirmed reports in the news already that the Syrian regime has been moving around some of its weapons. Some of them have been already weaponized and delivered to field fighting units, so it's going to be hard to account for them. So there are a lot of difficult questions on the practicality of this agreement. Of course, the agreement leaves open the whole question of why a dictator who uses such weapons against its own people gets a reward and a recognition as a consequence of that, and what are the implications as we move forward.
And what do you think of the deal between Kerry and Lavrov? Is the timeline feasible, or is it too ambitious?
Again, I think that the devil is in the details. The question of implementation will give us an answer. I think that it is extremely difficult to assume that even in the best circumstances, which are lacking, of course, such a deal can be implemented. You need to have a compliant Syrian regime, a sincere leader in Syria who will give up the kind of weaponry that he's always kept in order to ensure the survival of his regime. So at a time when the regime's life is under threat by the civil war, it is surprising to imagine that he would actually give it up. It is a deal that basically brings Russia back on the center stage of Middle East politics, something that we shouldn't welcome. It is a deal with a country like Russia that until 2 weeks ago was backing the Syrian claim that there was no stockpile of chemical weapons. So there are a lot of open questions, and we will see in the weeks ahead whether the answer is a positive or negative one. I think that we should share the moderate skepticism of the Israeli Prime Minister, who says we will see if implementation goes forward.
Quickly, why do you think the turnaround for Russia?
I think the turnaround here is for America, and the Russians just leaped at the opportunity. The U.S. president clearly, because of 2.5 years of basic inaction by the United States on the Syria situation, the U.S. president did not really want to act decisively on this issue. Secretary Kerry's remarks off the cuff last week about the possibility of finding a way out of the military showdown gave Russia an opportunity to come to the rescue of their ally, in the process reassert themselves as the power broker in the situation. So that's why Russia came around. Again, the question of implementation is key here. And the fact that an agreement has come about for leading the U.S. to back down from military action does not mean that Syria will give up its chemical weapons, let alone does not bring about a solution to the conflict and accountability of the Syrian dictator for using such weapons against civilians.
All right, Emanuele Ottolenghi, a senior fellow with the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. We always appreciate your time and expertise. Thank you so much.
Thank you.